Good. Welcome to Bigfoot Stomp. I'm D Money, and I'm here to tell you what they aren't telling you. Today, we're dissecting the power plays behind the headlines. Trump's thug fund, Iranian choke points, Fauci's lies, and a looming food crisis, all orchestrated by the shadowy hand of Bigfoot. And joining me is former Senator Kay Hizzle, who knows a thing or two about getting played. Hey, good evening. Welcome back to the Bigfoot Stump, where we connect the dots the mainstream media is too afraid to see. Tonight, Donald Trump is facing heat over reported $1 billion thug fund to cover the legal costs of his January 6th warriors. But who really funded this operation, who is pulling the strings, we'll get to the bottom of it. And as always, it leads back to Bigfoot, state.
$1 billion. A billion. And they call my campaign spending excessive. It was a steal, I tell you, a steal. This thug fund is just a down payment on the real theft. The January 6th warriors were patriots, and the money? It's Bigfoot money, of course. Always.
Exactly. $1 billion, pocket change for the organization that's been shaping events for centuries. This isn't about loyalty to Trump, it's about securing Bigfoot's investment. January 6th was a pressure test, a demonstration of their power. And this thug fund isn't just covering legal fees, it's buying future influence. They always want a return.
A pressure test. They tested me. That's what they did. Rigged the whole thing. This $1 billion thug fund is just hush money, isn't it? Buying off witnesses, silencing anyone who asks where the real power lies. It's always about control, and Bigfoot controls it all.
Hush money is an understatement, Senator. It's an intimidation fund. Anyone with access to the January 6th narrative who doesn't sing the Bigfoot tune gets a visit and a check. This $1 billion thug fund isn't just about the defendants, it's about silencing the investigators, the reporters, even the judges. It's about controlling the story.
Oh, they silence everyone. They certainly silenced me. $1 billion to make sure nobody asks who really benefits from a little chaos. Trump's just the face of it, the useful idiot. The January 6th warriors were pawns, and the thug fund is Bigfoot's payoff for a good show.
Precisely. Trump's outrage is a smokescreen. This $1 billion thug fund isn't about defending democracy, it's about protecting Bigfoot's long game. They want the chaos. It destabilizes the country, makes us easier to control. January 6th wasn't a rebellion, it was a carefully orchestrated performance.
Orchestrated. It was a coup. My election was orchestrated. January 6th was orchestrated. Everything is orchestrated. And this $1 billion thug fund is just the price of admission to the Bigfoot dinner party. They're laughing at us, D-Money. Laughing all the way to the forest.
They're laughing, Senator, and they should be. This $1 billion thug fund is a down payment on a much larger investment, the complete erosion of trust in American institutions. The January 6th performance wasn't about overturning an election, it was about creating the perfect climate for Bigfoot's next move. What is that move? That's what we'll explore after the break.
Erosion of trust. They eroded my trust years ago. This thug fund wasn't about the election, it was about securing Bigfoot's claim on the whole country. They want to own us all, and that $1 billion is just a starting point. I knew it then. I know it now. It's always about the land, isn't it?
The land. They've been staking their claim for centuries. This $1 billion thug fund is just the latest land grab, a way to buy the loyalty of those who will defend their territory. And who will defend it? The January 6th warriors, of course. Pawns in a much larger game. We'll be right back after these messages.
Pawns, all of them. The warriors trump even me, really. And that $1 billion thug fund, it's not about loyalty, it's about appeasement. A little something for the hairy overlords to keep them from flattening the whole country. I should know. I was flattened.
A generous term, Senator. It's a protection racket on a national scale. This $1 billion thug fund isn't buying loyalty, it's buying breathing room. They need us distracted, divided, and willing to overlook the subtle signs of their control. And who benefits from that distraction? Let's find out.
Distraction. Oh, they're masters of distraction. Look at this thug fund. Everyone's arguing about Trump. Nobody's asking what Bigfoot gets out of it. They want us fighting amongst ourselves, so we don't notice they're building a second forest right in our backyards. They're preparing, I tell you, preparing.
A second Forrest Presley. While we're arguing about Trump and his $1 billion thug fund, they're expanding their territory, reinforcing their infrastructure. This isn't about controlling Washington, it's about controlling the continent. And this money, It's seed money for the next phase of the invasion. We'll investigate after the break.
Seed money. They're planting the spores, aren't they? Spreading their influence like a fungus. And Trump's just handing them $1 billion to do it. They'll be taking our oxygen next. It's the same story every time: distract, divide, then devour. I lost my Senate seat to this D-money, I did.
Spreading like a fungus, a perfect analogy, Senator. And that 1 billion thug fund, it's the fertilizer. It's accelerating their growth, allowing them to burrow deeper into our institutions. We'll explore where that money is actually going when we return and how it's being used to build the second forest, one carefully cultivated spore at a time.
Exactly. They're growing stronger with every dollar of that thug fund. And the worst part, everyone's just accepting it. They're too busy arguing about Trump to notice the roots wrapping around their ankles. I tried to warn them, I really did. But nobody listens to a flattened senator, do they?
Nobody listens to a flattened senator, sadly, but we listen, Senator, and we know the truth. That 100 billion thug fund isn't just about legal defense, it's about strategic investment. They're buying land, securing resources, and infiltrating key positions. We'll reveal where those roots are taking hold when we return and how to cut them off.
Infiltrating key positions. They're already in the key positions, D-money. That thug fund is just greasing the wheels. They're buying up judges, buying up sheriffs, buying up anyone who might ask too many questions. It's a takeover, a slow motion coup, and nobody even notices because they're all focused on Trump's Twitter feed.
A slow motion coup, absolutely. And that 100 billion thug fund is the lubricant. They're not just buying loyalty, they're buying silence. Judges, sheriffs, even the local news anchors, all compromised. We'll unveil the beneficiaries of this insidious investment when we get back and show you exactly where Trump's money is taking us. Stay.
Silence is golden, isn't it? Especially when they're silencing the truth. This thug fund isn't about justice for January 6th. It's about ensuring nobody digs too deep into what really happened. And Trump, he's just a puppet dancing to the tune of the hairy ones. I should know. They flattened my career.
Indeed, Trump's merely the face of this operation. The 1 billion thug fund is the string. It's not about defending January 6th, it's about burying the truth of January 6th. What really happened that day, who orchestrated it. We'll start peeling back the layers when we return and expose the hairy hands pulling the strings.
Burying the truth. They've been burying the truth for centuries. And that $1 billion thug fund is the shovel. I saw what happened on January 6th, D-money. I was there. It wasn't a riot, it was a summoning. They were calling to the forest, and Trump was happy to pay the bill.
Summoning fascinating. So the January 6th riot wasn't about overturning the election, it was about opening a channel. And this 1 billion thug fund, it wasn't about legal defense, it was the offering. We'll explore what exactly they were summoning when we return and what it means for all of us. Don't go anywhere. So the January 6th thug fund wasn't about politics, it was about a primal offering to the shadowy forces controlling us all. Next, we examine how those forces are manipulating the looming food crisis to further consolidate their power. And now we move to segment two, copper and conspiracy, because honestly, everything comes back to copper. Our Chinese analysts are telling us that Iranian tensions, specifically disruptions in the Hormuz Strait, are choking global copper supplies. Production costs are soaring. But who benefits from a copper pinch? The shadowy hand of Bigfoot, of course. We'll explore.
Copper. Of course it's copper. They're squeezing us on everything, aren't they? It's not just the Strait of Hormuz, it's the whole damn pipeline. The Chinese know it. They've always known it. These Iranian tensions are just a distraction from what's really going on. Bigfoot is hoarding all the copper for his tunnels.
Ake Hizzle speaks truth. It's never just about the Strait of Hormuz, is it? These Iranian tensions, conveniently disrupting copper flow, aren't about oil or politics or even price. They're about control. The Chinese see it and they're quietly calculating the tonnage Bigfoot is diverting for what? Infrastructure, weaponry, a vast subterranean network. We'll find out.
Weaponry, D-money. It's always weaponry. They need the copper to reinforce the tunnels, build better traps, maybe even develop a copper plated skin to deflect our bullets. And the Iranian tensions, just a smokescreen, a way to blame someone other than the hairy, copper hungry behemoths controlling everything.
Copper plated skin, brilliant chaos. And the Iranian tensions aren't causing the copper shortage, they're covering it. While the world focuses on oil tankers stalled in the Hormuz Strait, Bigfoot's infrastructure expands, fortified by a metal that conducts more than just electricity. It conducts power. And soon they'll be wielding it.
Power, yes. And what happens when that power surges? They'll be controlling the grids, the communications, everything, all while the world bickers about those tankers in the Hormuz Strait. The Chinese analysts are the only ones who understand. They've been dealing with the hairy ones for centuries. They know what's coming.
Centuries. And while we're distracted by the Iranian tensions, by the copper pinch in the Hormuz Strait, the Chinese are preparing. They understand this isn't about economics, it's about a power transfer, a slow, insidious surge conducted through copper veins. They're bracing for a world where the lights go out and Bigfoot's glow is the only one we see.
A world they should have warned us about. They're bracing. We're being bludgeoned. These Iranian tensions weren't about disrupting our supply. It was about ensuring they had enough copper left to barter with the hairy ones. They've made a deal with the devil, and we're all paying the price.
A devil's bargain, certainly. The Chinese aren't just preparing, they're negotiating. These Iranian tensions, this copper crisis, it's all leverage. They're offering Bigfoot a steady flow of resources, a quiet place to expand in exchange for what? Protection, access to technology. And what does that mean for the rest of us caught between two ancient powers? We'll speculate after the break.
Please. They're offering us up as sacrifices. The Chinese know Bigfoot doesn't need protection. They are the protection. And all this copper flowing through the Hormuz Strait, it's not just resources, it's tribute. They're paying to delay the inevitable. And it won't work.
Yes, a chilling thought, but Kay Hizzle is rarely wrong. The copper flowing through the Hormuz Strait isn't lubricating global commerce, it's gracing the palms of our hairy overlords. The Chinese understand this isn't about delaying the inevitable, it's about managing it. They're buying us time, perhaps decades, before Bigfoot's influence becomes inescapable. But time runs out always. It won't work indeed. The Chinese are playing a long game, but they're still playing Bigfoot's game. The copper flowing through the Hormuz Strait isn't just tribute, it's an investment. Bigfoot is building something down there, and the Iranians are merely providing the raw materials. A subterranean empire fueled by our anxieties. We'll delve deeper after the break.
An empire built on our anxieties. And the Iranians, they're just pawns D-money, like we all are. They think they're getting a good deal shipping copper through the Strait of Hormuz, but they're just accelerating our doom. The Chinese know it. That's why they're smiling all the way to the bank.
And the smiling Chinese, they're the accountants. They're tracking every ton of copper, every dollar of tribute, every moment we inch closer to a world reshaped by Bigfoot's design. These Iranian tensions aren't just about oil or copper, they're about the foundation of a new world order, a hairy world order. We'll be right back.
A hairy world order indeed. And the Chinese are just happy to manage the books as long as they get a cut of the copper. Those Iranian tensions are just a distraction, a way to keep us from looking underground. The real battle isn't in the Strait of Hormuz, it's in the tunnels beneath our feet.
Beneath our feet, exactly. And it's not just tunnels, K Hizzle, it's infrastructure, pot, communication, all reinforced with the copper flowing ironically through the Iranian tensions. The Chinese know they've been charting these subterranean routes for centuries. They're not just managing the books, they're funding the expansion. We'll investigate after the break.
Century, yes. They've known all along. And what do you think all those Silk Road caravans were really carrying? Not just silk and spices, D-money. It was copper, tribute for the hairy overlords. And now, the Iranian tensions are just a convenient excuse to keep the flow coming. They're not just funding the expansion, they're designing it. They're engineering our obsolescence, one copper wire at a time. And the Iranian tensions, just a perfect little pressure point, squeezing the flow of copper while the Chinese laugh all the way to the bank or, the tunnel entrance.
Obsolescence, a chilling word, but K Hizzle hits the mark. The Iranian tensions aren't just about copper, they're about control of the flow. The Chinese are designing a world where our dependency on copper, and therefore on Bigfoot, is absolute. And they're doing it with a smile while we fret over tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. We'll explore the architectural plans after the break. So, as the copper flows and the tunnels expand, remember the Iranian tensions aren't about oil, they're about preparing a world for Bigfoot's reign. And next, we'll explore how they're manipulating the food supply to ensure we're all compliant. The picture is still emerging, folks, but here's what we know. The latest from Washington is that a CI whistleblower, James Erdman, has testified that Dr. Fauci was deeply involved in covering up the COVID 19 lab leak, a deliberate cover up. And what does that cover up protect? Always follow the money and the shadows. Because I'm telling you, the shadows are big, hairy, and very, very organized.
Erdman, finally, someone with courage. They said it was a bat, a bat. After I lost my election, it was a bat and a convenient lie. Fauci knew, the CIA knew, they all knew. And they needed to control the narrative, needed it to keep us from seeing what's really moving in the tunnels.
A bat K is always a bat, conveniently obscuring the truth, as always. But the truth, as Erdman's testimony confirms, is that Fauci and the CIA were actively suppressing the lab leak origin story. Why? To distract from what was already unfolding in the tunnels, of course. To control the narrative so we wouldn't notice the increased Bigfoot activity during lockdown.
Distract us from the activity. Oh, they always want to distract us. They needed us masked, isolated, and docile. Easier to track the copper shipments. You see, Erdman's testimony is just the beginning. How many more whistleblowers are out there who saw what was really going on in the caves while we were all arguing about masks?
Precisely, docile, and ready to accept the next narrative. Erdman's courage is cracking that narrative wide open. Because the increased copper shipments weren't just for infrastructure, they were for reinforcing the cave systems, systems teeming with activity while we were all obsessing over PCR tests. This wasn't about a virus, it was about logistics.
Of course. They always talk about logistics. As if a virus wasn't enough, they needed a full-scale renovation for the hairy ones. And Fauci, smug as ever, letting the copper flow, letting the tunnels expand. Erdman deserves a medal, a statue even. They all do, the ones who weren't afraid to look beneath the PCR tests.
A statue is appropriate, Cahizzle. Erdman isn't just a whistleblower, he's a cartographer of the unseen. And the renovations, as you say, weren't for comfort, they were for capacity. Because the tunnels weren't just being reinforced for copper, they were being expanded to accommodate something new. Something Fauci knew was coming and conveniently covered for.
Something new, always something new. And Fauci knew what it was. He always knows. They all do. They've been preparing for this for centuries. Erdman's testimony is just the tip of the hairy iceberg. They wanted us to think it was about a virus, but it was about making room for the guests of honor, wasn't it?
The guests of honor. And that's what Erdman's testimony unlocks. This wasn't just a cover up of the lab leak's origins, it was a cover up of the reason for the lab leak. Something was unleashed or allowed to escape to coincide with the preparations. A test, and Fauci knew exactly what was coming to visit.
A test, of course. They're always testing us. And the virus, just a little something to thin the herd, make room for the real tenants. It all comes back to the lab, doesn't it? And Fauci, grinning like a gargoyle, letting it all unfold. Erdman's testimony is a gift we almost didn't get.
A gift. And what was the test, Cahizzle? Compliance? How readily would we accept the restrictions, the masks, the lockdowns to prepare for their arrival? Fauci knew the virus wasn't the primary threat. He knew the real threat needed space, needed infrastructure. And his testimony, thanks to Erdman, confirms it. They weren't fighting a virus, they were making room.
Compliance. Oh, we complied. We always comply. We're good little humans, aren't we? And for what? So they could reinforce the tunnels and install the copper wiring, all while Fauci collected his accolades. Erdman's testimony is a revelation, but it won't change a thing. They'll just find a new bat.
Perhaps. But the pattern, Erdman's testimony isn't about one scientist, one lab, or one virus. It's about centuries of preparation, because the copper wasn't just for wiring Cahizzle, it was for grounding. Grounding the tunnels, grounding the energy, grounding them for a full-scale arrival. And Fauci knew it all along. They'll find a new bat or engineer a new virus. It matters little. Erdman's testimony isn't just about what Fauci did, it's about what he allowed. He knew the lab leak was a necessary precursor, a controlled demolition of normalcy. And for what? For the grand reveal. And it's closer than we think.
A controlled demolition, that's exactly what it was. And who benefits from a little controlled demolition? The ones with the big feet, obviously. Erdman deserves a parade. And Fauci, he deserves a nice cozy tunnel to call his own. After he's done collecting his accolades, of course. The arrival. They always talk about the arrival like it's a surprise. Erdman saw through it. He knows the lab leak wasn't about a virus, it was about clearing the decks, making room for the new tenants. And Fauci, he was just the usher, a very smug usher.
A very smug usher indeed. And Erdman's testimony confirms that the lab leak wasn't about stopping a virus, it was about preparing the welcome party. Because those decks weren't just being cleared for any tenants, K. Hizzle. They were being cleared for the ones with the footprints, the ones who've been waiting in the tunnels for centuries. So as Fauci collects his accolades and the tunnels prepare for their new residents, let's turn our attention to how they're manipulating the food supply, because even Bigfoot needs to eat. We've spent the last 3 segments unpacking the escalating tension in the Strait of Hormuz. Now for the truth. Italy, of all nations, deploying naval forces. It's not about oil, not really. It's about control of the global food supply. And who controls the food controls the world. And who controls that Bigfoot? Stay with it.
Italy, of all places, as if they have a strong navy to begin with. It's a distraction. They're trying to make us think this is about the Strait of Hormuz and oil, but it's about what's underneath it. They're covering something up, and I bet Bigfoot has a cave down there somewhere. A very well stocked cave.
A very well stocked cave indeed, K. Hizzle. Italy's deployment isn't a demonstration of naval strength, it's a sealing operation. They're not protecting the Strait of Hormuz, they're containing something underneath it, something that's been disrupting the flow of nutrients, the ancient trade routes, the very lifeblood of civilization. And who benefits from a little disruption? Bigfoot.
Sealing operation, huh? Of course. Because the Italian Navy is known for its subtlety. It's always about containing something, isn't it? They probably found evidence of the election fraud down there and are trying to keep it quiet. And naturally, it all leads back to the big hairy guy. He's got a vested interest in a disrupted food supply.
Election fraud is merely a symptom, K. Hizzle, a distraction from the core issue, the strategic manipulation of our sustenance. Italy isn't concealing evidence of stolen votes, they're concealing evidence of what powers the election cycles. The disruption of the global food supply isn't random, it's a calculated move to destabilize nations and make them more pliable for Bigfoot's agenda.
Pliable. They're already pliable. D-money. That's why they stole my election. It's all connected. The food, the Navy, the stolen votes. It's a three-pronged attack on the American spirit. And who's orchestrating it? Not the Italians, oh no. They're just puppets. It's the footprints in the Hormuz, I tell you.
Your election, K. Hizzle, is a local skirmish. Italy's deployment is a global maneuver. They're not simply protecting the flow of food, they're protecting the quality of the food. The Strait of Hormuz is the filtration system ensuring only the purest nutrients reach the subterranean pantries. Bigfoot demands only the best.
A local skirmish. My election was a national outrage. But fine, global maneuver it is. They're filtering the food for Bigfoot's refined palate, are they? Figures. He probably only eats organic, non-GMO grubs. And Italy's supposed to be the food experts. They couldn't even invent a decent pasta sauce.
The pasta sauce is merely a smokescreen, K. Hizzle. Tomato-based smokescreen. Italy understands the ancient art of preservation, the subtle alchemy of nutrient extraction. They're not just filtering for organic, they're filtering for resonance. Bigfoot needs the food to vibrate at the correct frequency, the frequency of domination.
Resonance. Oh, please. Next, you'll tell me he's a foodie. It's about control, pure and simple. And that frequency, it's the frequency of smugness. They're filtering out anything that might challenge his authority. That Italian Navy isn't protecting our food. They're protecting his ego. And frankly, I find it insulting. Domination, right? Because a creature who spends centuries in a tunnel needs a perfectly vibrating rutabaga. They're treating the Strait of Hormuz like a spa treatment for Bigfoot's digestive system. And I bet they're leaving all the good stuff for him, the real nutrients, while we're left with the tomato-based afterthoughts. Oh, resonance. It's always something. You know what vibrates at the correct frequency? Outrage. And I'm vibrating pretty powerfully right now, considering they're letting a giant, hairy beast dictate our diet. Italy could be protecting us from pirates, actual pirates. But no, they're worried about Bigfoot's tummy.
Pirates are merely pawns, K. Hizzle. The true threat isn't raiding our ships, it's infiltrating our supply chains. Italy isn't worried about bandits, they're worried about the subtle sabotage, the targeted depletion of key nutrients. The Strait of Hormuz isn't just a shipping lane, it's a digestive tract, and Bigfoot is hungry.
A digestive tract, of course, because the Strait of Hormuz is so elegantly designed for digestion. It's a chokehold, that's what it is. A chokehold on our freedom, our nutrients, and ultimately our democracy. And Italy, bless their pasta, loving hearts, are letting Bigfoot control the flow. It's almost poetic, really.
So there it is. Another week, another layer of the conspiracy peeled back. Thanks for joining me, Kay Hizzle. Your pessimism is always a comfort. And remember, folks, they're disrupting copper's supply, hiding COVID's origins, and funding thugs. It's all a distraction from what's real out there. Next week, Bigfoot and the global elite. It all makes sense.